Hello, welcome back to Unveiling University, or welcome if it's your first time. I'm Carly, and to give you a little bit of background perspective, or to remind you what I am an expert about, I go to the University of Maine, and I'm a secondary education major with a concentration in math. I will be entering my third year, it's crazy to believe that, in a few weeks. So, as I promised in my last update, I didn't really follow through on that. Instead of, being a few months later, we're like 2 years later. So I'm sorry. Hopefully we can try to stay a little bit more on track. College life gets busy. So, in general, my college experience has been pretty good, about what I expected, with, course load and testing and all that. I feel like I've been able to balance more things that I would have anticipated. Like I have 2 jobs. I at least take 6 classes a semester usually, which is a little bit above average, but I mean, it depends on classes you take. If you can really handle a larger course load, because when you're taking a few education classes, they're not that hard compared to like if you were taking a lot of STEM classes. I mean, some days, of course, I feel very stressed and like, why am I doing this to myself? But overall, I think that college has been a pretty good experience. I've really enjoyed almost all of my classes. There have been a few where I wasn't super interested, or the teaching method didn't really match my style of learning, I guess. But I've been able to push through, and I've still gotten A's in every class, which is always my goal. Of course, it's not everybody's goal. I don't really have much of a social life. It's really been a big goal for me. I don't really do all the partying and all the clubs. In terms of my favorite classes, I think they've been my Spanish classes, because I feel like I always learn something new and, well, something relevant. I feel like Spanish is like a real world skill that I could potentially use in my future to help, connect with some students. So I'm hoping that my Spanish will, be useful one day in my classroom. And speaking of Spanish, as I mentioned in my first update, I was considering adding a Spanish minor, and I have successfully and officially done that, which I'm very excited about. Another class that I really enjoyed last semester was EHD 204, which is an education course about assessment and how you include that and link that to your instruction. And I thought that was a really good class for experience. So if you're going to Maine, I would look forward to that one. Yeah. I feel like, of course, I've gotten a lot of theoretical book learning in class. But luckily UMaine's education program is pretty good about real life experience, which is something I didn't really put a high value on before when I was just looking at colleges, but now that I'm actually in college and I've had some of these experiences, I really do see their value. So in your college search, if that's the stage you're at, I would definitely recommend trying to ask all the questions you can and looking into what real life experiences you can get in your major, whether it's education or, I don't know, some science that you want to get some research done in, anything. I would definitely make sure that there are lots of real life experiences that you can get into, and at least one. Some colleges do require an internship. UMaine is not one of those for every major. Of course, as an education major, I will have to do my student teaching. I also, for EHD 101, which is still an introductory level class that I took my second semester, it was required to spend a few hours every week, mostly in an after school program. Most people, that's where they were placed. I was as well. I was unfortunately placed at a K through 3 school, so it didn't really give me experience working with the 7th through 12th graders that I will be certified to teach. But I mean, I've really had a good time learning how to make personal connections with students, and it did help confirm that I wasn't really wanting to teach in an elementary setting. Another real life experience that UMaine requires for their education students is teacher candidacy. You have to spend a full 5 days, like the full school length day, with a mentor teacher for a week. And so I did that I did it last June, I guess, May or June, I don't know, right after we finished college, my first year. I went to a school that's not far from my hometown. It's a joint middle and high school because it is a smaller place. And yeah, I think that experience, it was really valuable. It's supposed to be mostly an observational experience, and you're supposed to interview and talk to your mentor teachers teacher as much as you can to get a real sense of what teaching is actually like. And I think that it definitely did show a very good perspective for me. I was also able to bounce around to a lot of different classrooms to get a feel for the middle school level as well, because I was placed with a high school math teacher. So I got to see a lot of different teaching styles because I was placed in so many different classrooms throughout that week. And that's not necessarily what the teacher candidacy experience is designed to do, but I found that valuable. But I definitely can see how working closely with one teacher for that week would also be really valuable. Outside of those experiences, going to school at UMaine has given me another opportunity that I had to, go for myself, because it's just a job on campus. We do offer tutoring and mentoring, but I haven't gotten into those things yet. What program I have gotten into is called MLA. It stands for Maine Learning Assistant, and it's essentially a TA. You're acting as a TA, but as an undergraduate student, and you're not allowed to grade anything. For that, I get a lot of good experience and observation with teaching math. I have been I applied for an introductory to calculus course called 116. And while it is a minimum wage job, it's super experience rich. Like, I can, during the classes, because I attend their 3 1-hour sessions of class, and I help the teacher, and I am also able to observe the teacher while they're doing any of their teaching, which I think is really helpful, having that good role model there. But also I work in the math lab a few hours a week. The math lab at UMaine is a small walk-in tutoring center specifically for math. And there's going to be TAs and MLAs and professors in there at varying times. And, I'm one of the people that goes there and helps out. So I think that it's been a really great opportunity to get, more one-on-one or small group teaching practice. I think that all of these experiences in total, whether they're through the university or, a separate job, have been really valuable. So I would highly encourage anybody to make sure that wherever they're going, there's going to be good real-life experiences available. On, a totally different note, I'll tell you a little fun fact about my favorite spot on campus. My real favorite spot on campus is a place that I've only been to once. I went because I had to go on a scavenger hunt around campus to look at the different art-like collections and pieces on campus. And I ran into this rocks and mineral collection in Bryant Global Science Center, which I didn't know it existed because it's on the edge of campus where I never go. And that's the main reason why I've only been there once. But it's super nice because, the rocks and minerals are so beautiful, and there's it's like a study room, essentially. Like, there's a few tables, I believe there was a whiteboard, and a big thing, there was AC. My go-to study place is the library, and there's not AC in that thing. So, the AC felt really, really great during the early months of the school year, and I'm sure the last few months in the spring. So yeah, I would recommend if you go to UMaine and you have a chance to, get over there and maybe try to study or at least look at the rocks. It's a really cool place on campus. Okay, now back to the serious stuff. My secrets to success. I don't really think about it a lot. I've kind of done mostly the same thing that I've done since high school, in, keeping really organized and planning ahead. As soon as I get my syllabi, they usually have most of the time, most teachers, professors provide your exam schedule. So, if you have 3 exams, you know the date or at least approximately when they're going to be. So I can immediately get that into my planner. And so I can be prepared and know when they're coming up and start studying in advance, which is another tip I would totally recommend. Studying in advance, not cramming the night before, unless, you feel confident about the material. And I also try to fill out my planner each week. I look at all the things that, need to get done around that time. And I try to, plan it out what I'm going to do each week, and then each week I try to plan it out by what I'm going to do each day. That way, if when I do have those times to, like an hour break in between classes to go work in the library, I already know what I'm doing. I don't have to think about and decide what I'm going to do then and waste, that whole 15 minutes deciding what I'm going to do and starting to do it, rather than just, immediately getting right into it. Next semester, it's about to start in a few weeks. So I am not necessarily looking forward to my course load. But yeah, I did do it to myself by choosing my major. As a secondary ed math student, I have to take a lot of math classes. And this semester, I am taking 4 of them. Because they don't offer these high-level math classes very often, because there aren't very many math majors and there aren't very many math education majors, so not very many people take them. So I will be taking 4 400 level math classes: discrete mathematics, differential geometry, probability theory, and abstract algebra. Along with these 4 math classes, I'm much more excited to take my 1 Spanish class this semester, which is Latinos in the U.S., and an education class called Prevention and Intervention, which is about behaviors, I think. So I'm most excited for my Spanish class because I just love my Spanish professor. I've had her for the past 3 semesters, and she's a native of Peru, she's been here for, a long time now. She's just so nice, and she has so many good insights, and she definitely tries to push me, more than, I would normally. Like, she makes sure that I'm talking, and if nobody's raising their hand, she's like, oh, well, it's gonna be you, Carly. And, I do need that to a certain extent, because I do have a hard time volunteering myself to talk in English, much less in Spanish. The class I'm probably least excited for is differential geometry, because I had this professor last fall, and I didn't really mesh well with his teaching style, but it's a fairly different class. It was a proof class last fall, so now it's differential geometry, and I feel that hopefully those are different enough that I will be able to get through it a little bit with a little less stress than last time. Looking farther out is where I get to my mid-college crisis. I know that I still want to teach math at the secondary level. I know that I still want to pursue my Spanish minor, but I really did want to study abroad, and I had planned to do that last semester a little bit, but I never really finalized it. I never, really went through with the whole application and budgeting, because looking at it, I think I overwhelmed myself, and I was like, well, what if everything goes wrong? Do I really want to spend this much money? What if my scholarships don't, apply because it's through a separate program? So I kind of psyched myself out about it, and instead of going to Valencia, Spain last spring, like the spring that just happened, I stayed here in Maine, which was kind of sad, because I really wanted to travel for so long, and I've just never finalized any plans to ever do it. So now I'm looking ahead at potentially studying abroad in fall 2025, but looking at UMaine's direct exchange programs, which through them you pay your tuition bill to UMaine, which is how my scholarships would work best, and then you pay room and board, any additional expenses like that, to your host university. Unfortunately, they don't offer any in Spanish-speaking countries, but I did look at a few, mostly in the UK, that are a decent price, and they have a lot of most of them have an interesting education class or two that would, be an interesting supplement to my major here. I'm not really looking at course equivalencies because, I've done enough for the past few semesters that it shouldn't really be a problem if I don't satisfy much that fall, but I think I'm going to have to take an online class through UMaine during that time, so I just don't know if that's possible. I need to set up all the meetings and if I, really want to pursue it. My other thoughts are, I think about honors, if I want to continue doing that. Honors has been fine. I did the core courses, I guess. I don't really know what else to call it. We have a civilization sequence, which is the first 4 semesters. You take a class twice a week with the big lecture, and you read, we read quite a few books. Thankfully, they did lower cut, I guess, the reading list since I started. My first semester, we read a book every week, and then after that, we read a book about every 2 weeks. So it was more manageable, that's for sure. But now that part's done, I have to consider if I want to graduate with honors and do my honors thesis, which is something I've debated about since the beginning. Being a teacher, I feel like experience is more important than research. So because of that, I was thinking at the end of this past semester that just happened spring, I was like, I'm going to drop honors and I'm going to graduate a semester early. That was my thoughts. But then I heard about the Fulbright grants, and they offer one that allows students from the United States to go teach English in another country. And I'm like, well, that would be a really cool opportunity, and not one that I'd have to pay much money because it's a grant. So the grant would cover probably most of my expenses, if not all of them. And I feel like it'd be a great, impactful way to try and use my Spanish and education background. But I don't know, I kind of psych myself out because it's super competitive. And I just feel like, oh, am I the best, candidate for the job? And they do offer a lot of positions, but they just get so many applications. So I'm like, to be more competitive, I should probably do my honors thesis in, learning a second language specifically. And so I'm just like, well, what do I do? It just seems like a great opportunity, and I could do my thesis and make it happen, or graduate a semester early. So that's where I'm at. That's all the ideas floating around in my head about my future. And hopefully my mid-college crisis will get resolved by the end of the semester. I have to make a choice either way if I'm going to keep doing honors. So yeah, that'll be exciting. Well, I think that just about sums up my college experience so far. Hopefully you've appreciated the update. If there's any other questions, that you have, please feel free to leave a comment down below or send an email to unveilinguniversity@gmail.com. I do hope that I can get, this site up and running a little bit more. There is a new website with some blogs. And yeah, I'm hoping that I can try and do a weekly video, but we'll see what the new semester brings. I look forward to helping you unveil university.